I felt myself at times falling through space, at other moments floating and drifting, says David Abram. Space may be experienced in both stasis and through motion. In stillness, one can sense space, spatiality, and accompanying elements through visuals, that is sight, olfactive, that is smell, auditive, hearing, gustative, taste, and most notably tactile, that is touch, senses. But with increased awareness, a body in motion experiences and also causes changes more perceptibly. Motion links spaces which otherwise remain separate and defines its properties temporally. The moving body marks and circumscribes its center and gives direction to the flow of both time and space. The body is thus capable of creating fields and volumetric harmonies that form the basis for exquisite experiences. Space understood in this way may be referred to as bodily experience space. Against the more rationalized objective space we commonly tend to understand. Even these dimensions, elaborated in the previous chapter, take on different colors if viewed in this light. If experience space has a center which is perceiving man, and if therefore has an excellent system of direction which changes with the movements of the human body, it is limited and in no sense neutral. In other words, it is finite, heterogeneous, subjectively defined and perceived. Distances and directions are fixed relative to man, according to Gunther Nietzsche. The body and the experience are central to the necessity and the function of a defined space. The importance of the body and thus its perceptive movement through space should be of primary concern to an experimental activity. Thus, any study of space seems incomplete without looking at it through the bodily experience. Bodily experience space. The memory of the body far supersedes that of the mind. Some of us may have experienced moments of exuberant calm and peace when the body seems to move on its own familiar path and your mind and other senses seem detached from the body. As a dancer, we have experienced it and also heard others like danseuse Malika Sarabhai endeavors to explain that exhilarating rediscovery of the body moving almost on its own accord and the mind enjoying a separate state of meditative bliss. It is believed that this stems from the familiarity of the body to a routine that it has been consciously or subconsciously immersed in, to such an extent that the body does not require a mental participation in that process anymore. Both genetically and by experience, the human body possesses vaults of memory and that contribute to one's natural sense of familiarity, comfort and contentment. It should be interesting and informative to view spatiality and its manipulation through this sense. The primary memory of the body is haptic, that is communicative in nature. The haptic sense is the sense of touch reconsidered to include the entire body rather than merely the instruments of touch, such as the hands. To sense haptically is to experience objects in the environs by actually touching them. This is the sense that attaches us emotionally to the ground, yearns for the free space around and the expanse of the sky, and searches for the horizon to anchor one's domain. As a child, one automatically is keenly aware of the haptic sense and quickly grasps the fundamental meanings. However, This connection of man through his haptic senses and quickly grasp the fundamental meaning is a varied experience. However, this experience, when continues into adulthood, can contribute to an enhanced discovery of the self and acts as a constant reminder of the true richness of extraordinary human identity. Body movement, especially subconscious ones, tend to communicate a number of psychophysical directives. The meanings one can construe from postures, movements in isolation and with respect to other elements or bodies may range from mere directorial emphasis to accentuative suggestive gestures to sublime portrayals of subconscious relations and thought. Such studies of psychophysical experiences have been polemized as body image or body schema theories. For example, upward movement might indicate fantasy, striving, joy of aloofness, while downward might be realistic or negative, depressive, frontward indicate action and movement, strength and virtue, while the backward movement seems more private and withdrawing and secretive. The right side, generally considered stronger, usually stands for goodness, power, assertion and rationality, while the left might show signs of weakness and sinister motives. An exaggeration of these is what has been worked upon in dance to evoke or reenact similar feelings or situations. We should understand and take advantage of the perceptual and emotional capacities of human beings. Spatial definitions in dance. The dancer's medium is the body, which is an extremely practical and tangible piece of goods, much more so than words, musical notes or paint. Doris Humphrey. With its strong focus on the body movement, dance is a logical starting point for exploring the potential of moving body. Experiences in space making. The impulse to dance is inborn and natural. Even animals and birds dance. It may be contentious, but it is believed that every instinctive urge has a purpose in nature, and any act that brings about as much joy and aesthetic bliss as ritualistic or stage dance usually does must possess substantial depth of meaning. Dance is recognized for exploring the physical properties of our body, carving and interacting with space. A dance sculpts patterns in space which evoke in a viewer the feeling of grand structure that takes shapes before his eyes. In this sense, dance creates space as well as uses it through motion. A dancer also defines the properties of the space created by her. Space is simply a medium which can be sensed and made to respond to, in many ways through movement. We might sense it resisting, dividing, enveloping, accepting, etc. in response to motion. Thus, space might be said to be brought alive through dance. Spatial dimensions are defined in dance with the body forming the center which moves to create a system of directions and pathways that synthesize to define the domain. A significant accomplishment of movement in dance is that since the movement is that of the body itself, the experience of space is also from the inside and not just as an observer. This changes the point of view and experience itself so drastically that our sense and understanding of space transcends beyond the usual. This body experience of space in dance is what makes it interesting study to any sculptor of space such as an architect. Dance may be understood as a series of events in four-dimensional space-time. The experience of dance keeps changing as time progresses. Movement in dance is not a vague, indescribable set of reflex actions, but an articulately felt interaction with the positive stuff of space. The dancer and the space animate one another as partners. Dance begins with a static posture, usually of self-searching. A dance routine is stemmed with an inherent sense of body center, a vital aspect of maintaining the sense while moving through space in the continuous awareness of the pull of gravity. The body alters the space as an intuitive need for change that contributes to the overall experience, a series of events which are held within a certain time frame. One can keep exploring the experienced space with a variety of emotions and physical innovations that further define the constant change of the medium's definition itself. However, the basic patterns, root philosophy, and the ethos of the basic postures and movement types mostly remain as a sacred thread that holds all the innovations together and retains an order in the change that allows the space thus defined to remain true. It requires a simultaneous experience to truly belong to a space. The space should be a part of you and you should be a part of the space. Space is experiential and we have to learn to allow it to be. One of the essential philosophical questions will always remain, are you in the space or is the space in you? This duality in the beginning of creative tension. In dance, does one enter the space or does the space enter you? There are the questions that needs to instigate in order to increase an awareness of the omnipresence of space, its ontology, its constant ephemeral character, and thus its impact on the temporality of life itself. When a body enters the space, it engages with its existing or perceived hierarchy, convention, and rhetoric. What then comes first, the body or the space? Shobhana Jaising, British choreographer, often noted the particular power relationship between a body and the existing built space. When you put a body in such a space, you are already telling a story. The space communicates to the body, influencing and guiding the body's reaction to and movement within the space. Classical architecture and classical dance share among other sentiments such as grandeur, rhythm, and proportion. The idea of being the center of the universe. Thus, if one acknowledges the importance of the center and the center should come first, then one must allow the body to define the space as seen in dance. Movement is an aspect of architecture that has not been extensively treated as a subject in its own right. Architecture even tends to advocate quite the opposite in many instances. Part of the symbolic power of architecture is derived from its stability and durability, its resistance to physical forces and to the ravages of time. One of the contributing factors to this association of architecture with stillness and permanence is the confusion of the means with the end. Thus, one of the fundamental principles that of creating qualitative places to celebrate important human activities is all but buried. However, this burial has not occurred at the same rate everywhere, and in some cultures it hasn't been buried at all. Many examples of architecture from earlier periods reflect a long-standing acceptance of the body as central to architecture through and design. It is only recently that architectural beliefs and practices have become so severely rational. There are, however, quite a few current attempts to re-examine the significance of the human body in architecture. The interplay between the world of our bodies and the world of our dwelling places is always in a flux. Whether we are conscious or innocent of this process, our bodies and our movements are in constant dialogue with our buildings. In our contemporary practice, we are witnessing a rebirth of the interest in making places that reflect the notion that housing movements and activity is one of architecture's first principles. Places that facilitate and celebrate the occurrence of events rather than simply prescribing functions. One of the earlier examples in modern times in Guggenheim Museum, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. Here, the ideal movement patterns inform the form, thus assuring an exquisite body experience that resolves the function perfectly too. As a continuation to the studies through the bodily experience, let us look at architecture from the standpoint of how buildings are experienced. Experience is three-dimensional with the added continuum of time. The primary and most memorable sense of three-dimensionality originates in the body experience. This sense may constitute a strong basis for understanding spatiality in building. In architecture, which is essential, a definite carving and defining of three-dimensional space, we regularly fail to consider this original bodily sense. There are, however, architects who display a conscious sensitivity to this sensorial memory of the body. Architecture and theorist Giovanni Pallasma confesses that he considers two of the most important elements in any architecture to be the doorknobs and the first threads in staircase. He designs these with great care in all his projects. This obviously stems from the fact that the doorknob is usually where the person first touches a building, and the trade may be considered the first deliberated step. This consciousness of the somatic experience of a body and articulating every minor clement to excite and evoke the sense displays the deep understanding and a conscious approach to designing a space keeping in mind the body and movement. While movement as the overarching theme for architectural design may not be widely prevalent, it is equally possible that even when it has played a significant role, it has gone relatively unnoticed. One of the reasons for this may be that the traditional means of representing architecture, drawing, painting, and more recently photography are still images. A combination of still images and verbal descriptions has historically been the way to disseminate information on architecture. Three-dimensional architecture scales models have a much smaller spectatorship than two-dimensional images, which can at least be printed in books and easily distributed. Further, models are usually built at a size that, along with two-dimensional still images, only reinforces the preconception that architecture is a stationary object rather than a dynamic constructed environment. This current dependence of understanding on two-dimensional diagrams that stresses the quantitative aspect and of organization rather than a polychromatic qualitative experiential synthesis has become a serious limitation in architecture. Movement in architecture may be broadly understood in three ways: movement of the gaze of the observer, movement of the body through and around the building, and movement implied by the form itself. The usual means by which architecture texts discuss the theme of movement are to be either describe the way movement is expressed by a building through formal devices, as in case in Baroque churches and Hindu temples, or in terms of the passages of the occupant of a building and what he or she encourages along the architectural path. The latter strategy, however, tends to treat the floor plan as though it were a map. A related but more powerful variation on the aforementioned description of an occupant's passage through a building is the notion of the architectural promenade, a term popularized in modern times by references made to it in the writing of Le Corbusier. This concept, however, has several historical antecedents. The ancient Athenians deployed architectural events in the form of non-axial building, serving various ancillary functions along with the centripetal spiraling processional path to the Acropolis, a path leading eventually to the Pantheon and beyond, usually to the distant horizon. The palace complex at Fatehpur Sikri, India, is an example of architectural structure arranged along paths that change axis in such a way as to constantly offer shifting visuals and visual stimulations. Other examples exist in Egyptian, Indian and Mesoamerican architecture, mostly at large religious complexes. In a similar but much less linear fashion, this idea can also be seen in the gardens and villas of the Far East, where the passage itself rather than the destination is celebrated architecturally by a meandering passage, staying from and returning to its destination. The term movement can conjure different associations. Devadatta Shastri, in his unpublished doctoral thesis of choreographic and architectural movements, has identified 5 treatments of movement for the framework of his study: pictorially affective, literal, animated, choreographed and expressed, which are subsets of 3 broad categories based on the movements of people in space, the building that is actual and the building that is implied. Pictorially effective movement is established where the placement of pictorial and often figurative works of art in an architectural space create an emotionally affective narrative and invites the movement of the gaze, subsequently the body of an observer. Literal movement, which is the most easily perceived of the 5 qualities and involves actual movement of the whole or part of the building. Animated movement occurs when, due to his or her own movement, an observer perceives an illusion of movement or of architectural elements. Choreographed movements, where the movements of bodies in an architectural space is organized to create patterns of movement, or when a sequence of architectural encounters is planned along with the path of moving observer. And finally, expressed movement, where movement is implied by the whole or part of the work of architecture through the design of the formal massing and surface texture and does not require the locomotion of the observer's body. In any given work of architecture, it may be possible to find instances of all 5 treatments of movements or none at all. Movement can refer to people moving in and around a work of architecture. It can refer to the sun apparently moving in relationship to that work, or parts of a building or the whole building actually moving. It can also refer to architecture that spatially expresses an implied movement. Movement can be expressed literally by actually moving parts of the building. This is different from a non-expressive, purely utilitarian but actual movement of a part or of the whole of a work of architecture. Further, even when movement is expressed literally, it can be for the expression or representation of another idea which is being symbolized, or it can be for its own sake. In the case of the former, movement is used in narrative sense to express an idea like change, chaos, growth, effort and so on. In the case of the latter, it is used solely to engage the sense of an observer. The movement can have quality like gracefulness and playfulness or randomness, For example, this is the base of Laban's work of movement analysis. These would not express a further symbolic meaning. The same scenario applies when implied movement is expressed spatially. Here also the expression can be expressive of another concept or non-expressive and self-referential. There are quite a few examples of architecture where movement has influenced buildings and maybe even originally inspired them. The influence of classical dance in the architecture of Indian temple is an accepted ideology. There are references in ancient Indian treatises of architecture and art that make it clear that the fields of music, dance, painting and sculpture are interrelated, and that the sthapati, generator of a place, that is architect, should be well versed in these, at least insofar as the theory surrounding each. In Indian temple architecture, the connection with the human body extends from the figurative to the metaphorical. Professor Adam Hardy, who has headed extensive research in this analogy over the past 25 years, identifies 4 general themes of movement and rhythm that often occur in both North and South Indian temple architecture. Aedicularly, that is a composition made up of edicules or shrine forms, centrifugal movement, by which he means an extension of forces outwards from the center and not necessarily the centrifuge resulting from a spinning movement. Unfolding traditions, by which he means a succession of forms, each developing out of the prior one, and which, he writes, can be found both in a single temple and in a tradition of temple building on the whole. Analogies with concepts of manifestations. These analogies show that there is a resemblance in the dynamics of succession and emergence and emanation of the forms of the temple roof, the primary vehicle of movement, and to Hindu conceptions of the creation and dissolution cycle of the universe. Some of these traits can also be found in Indian dance traditions. Hardy also compares the use of a vertical frontal mandala centered on the navel of the dancer to the horizontal upward facing mandala centered on the finial of the shikhara or main spire of the temple. By alluding to the use of the mandalas, Hardy shows a connection between the design of dance and of architecture. Hardy, though his study has articulated the precise formal means used in the architecture to express movement, he shows that unlike many other expressions of movement that require the eye of the observer to move along the forms or from one form to another, sometimes requiring the observer's imagination to support the perception of movement, Indian temple architecture employs a systematic and sequential deployment of forms that create patterns of movement. These patterns of movement are capable of expressing movements by themselves and are independent of the movement of the observer's gaze. Indian temples also incorporate a system of shifting axes, which alter and direct the movement around the complex and contribute to an enriching kinetic experience. The connections and the axes created by 2 primary shrines at the Meenakshi Sundareshwar temple at Madurai form layered movement patterns and geometries that greatly contribute to the pilgrim's holistic experience. Some contemporary architecture too reflect an understanding of movement, and architects are beginning to consciously attempt designs based on body movements and the haptic experience. Most of the works of Aldo von Eyck exhibit this quality. They are infused with an organic dynamism, and the polarization of space seems to reflect a natural somatic familiarity. Some of his drawings indicate sightlines from vantage points that fix placement of openings, art objects and other elements. These provide great insight on his design process and the importance and centrality of the human body in his ideology. Most available literature on architecture is based on the premise of the stationary observers, and if at all it accounts for moving observer, it is usually walking, climbing or descending observer under the power of their own 2 feet. This may be a reflection on the fact that most architectural designs do not really address the moving observer, and when they do it, it is the ambulatory observer that is accounted for. However, it can be accepted that slowly but surely we can see a revival in molding the spatial experience based on a body's somatic familiarity and comfort.